radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Wednesday, March 26, episode 2 from London, live from London. So I gave you a little bit of an update on my activities in London. Not much has happened since then, so we're going to jump right into the news. Again, these shows are going to be a little shorter than usual. It's late here. It's 9 p.m. London time. I don't want to go too late. Got a busy day tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to Oxford. Anyway, today we're going to talk about Pizzagate. Oh no, Signalgate. Signalgate. Anti-vaxxers at the anti-vax activity at the HHS. What a shock! What a shock! RFK promised he wouldn't be, and yet he is. We'll talk about kidnapping in the United States in broad daylight. Kidnappings. Masked men dragging people into unmarked vans and driving off with them. We'll talk about demonstrations in Gaza that are anti-Hamas. That's pretty unusual, pretty rare. Russia, latest from the ongoing negotiations with Russia about a ceasefire. Good luck with that. And then finally, an excellent article today published by Scott Linscomb, kind of summarizing what's been going on with Milei. So we'll kind of end on a positive note by summarizing kind of all the stuff that's been going on with Milei, what Milei has done, what Milei has achieved, where he is falling short or where he is lagging expectations. And so we will cover the Milei story and try to bring you up to date in terms of where Argentina is with regard to its President Milei. It'll be a good opportunity also to do a little comparison between Milei and our own president, Donald Trump. Yeah. All right. So that's that. Let's see. I have now one spot available. Only one spot available for the March 29th. That is in 3 days on Saturday. Seminar here in London on how to be a rational egoist, issues regarding relationships and career and how to be an egoist. Just how to be an egoist. What does it mean? So we're going to be doing that 4 hours from 1 to 5 p.m. on Saturday. We're actually going to do it at my hotel in central London. So all of those of you guys who received instructions on where to go, you'll soon be receiving new instructions on where to go, because the venues keep canceling on us. It's something's not right. But anyway, the hotel. We have a facility in the hotel, and it's all happening, and it's moving forward. So please show up, and if you haven't yet registered and would like to come, one spot. That's it, just one, not more than one. So sign up. It's going to be a fun day. It'll be a fun day. Let's see. Other than that, I encourage you, as I always do, to ask questions on the Super Chat. It's an opportunity to ask questions, get them answered. It's an opportunity to support the show and in a sense, keep the show going. This is a listener-supported project. It does not exist without the support of listeners like you. So please help it exist by supporting it. Thank you already to Esoteric Dichotomy, Jonathan Honing, and Apollo Zeus for all providing us with stickers. Stickers is a way to support the show without asking a question. So if you don't have a question for me, can't think of a question for me, don't want to ask a question, just do a sticker, and that is cool. All right. Where do we start? Well, you got to start with this ridiculous Signalgate. We talked about this yesterday. Somebody, the leaders of the national security, the American national security, we're all on a call, basically a chat, a group chat on Signal, a commercially available, fully encrypted app, but that sits on people's personal devices and personal devices that can and have been hacked. Who knows what kind of devices they were using? iPhones, Samsungs, computers. It's hard to tell. You can run Signal on a number of different things, I think. I mean, WhatsApp you can run on the computer. Maybe you can only use Signal on a phone. I'm not sure. But the point is that this is not protocol. These conversations were highly classified. They were discussions about the coming attacks on the Houthis, and accidentally, I assume, they added to the group chat the chief editor of the Atlantic magazine, not exactly a magazine friendly to the Trump administration. I don't think any magazine should be friendly to the Trump administration. But anyway, this was reported, and you can imagine that an adult basically coming forward and saying, we screwed up. Really, I mean, we really did screw up. A mistake was made. We will investigate, and we will make sure this never happens again. We will never use Signal again for group chats related to national security. We will follow protocol. We messed up, and we acknowledge that, and we admit it, and we will we'll never let it happen again. But that's how adults respond to crises. Children, or immature adults, or adults that have basically grown up with the idea that when faced with conflict, when faced with embarrassment, when faced with anything, lie, repeat the lie over and over and over again, and everything will just blow over because lying works. They've learned that strategy from the President of the United States, from Donald Trump, from the people who vote for him, and they've inculcated that strategy into their being. So over the last few days, the leaders of the national security, of our national security, the people who are designing the strategy to defend the United States and to confront the challenges from Russia and from China and from the Houthis and from the Iranians and the North Koreans, the people who are supposed to be the adults in the room, the people who are supposed to know a lot, the people who are supposed to be, off the charts smart. I would hope that the people who are actually crafting the strategy for the United States vis-a-vis risks that constitute the survival of the United States, or at least the lives or deaths of thousands, if not millions of people, would be really, really smart and intelligent and have some wisdom and have some knowledge and generally, be people who you can trust to do the right thing and to act in the right way. Anyway, these people, the leaders of our national security apparatus in the United States, have spent the last 2 days lying, deflecting, evading, and lying. Nothing confidential was said on the chats. Well, today, the Atlantic published some of the stuff that was said on the chats, and clearly, this is confidential stuff. I don't know. Here's Pete Hegseth. This is the Secretary of Defense. Now, I told you. I hate to say I told you, but I did. I told you that he wasn't qualified. This is team update. Time now, 11:44 Eastern Time. Weather is favorable, just confirmed with CENTCOM. We are go for mission launch. 12:15 ET. F-18's launch, first strike package. 13:45, trigger-based, F-18's first strike, window starts. Target terrorists is at his known location, so should be on time. Also, strike drones launch, MQ-9s. 14:10, more F-18's launch, second strike package. Strike drones on target. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop. This is 14:15. Pending earlier trigger-based targets. 15:36, F-18 second strike starts, also first sea-based Tomahawk launched. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but it doesn't get much more confidential than this. There's the actual timing. They're actually targeting a particular person. So if this got out, that person would, people who are senior in the Houthi hierarchy would probably not be in the known location anymore because they know they were being targeted. This is ridiculous. I get the mistake. I get a mistake was done. And two mistakes were done. One, doing it on Signal. Second, the bigger one, letting a journalist in. But to deny it, to say there's no confidential information, here's Pete Hegseth. So let's get this straight. The Atlantic releases the so-called war plans, and those plans include no names, no targets, no locations, no units, no routes, no sources, no methods, and no classified information. Really? Really? So that you're targeting specific targets, you're using F-18s, the exact launch times of the F-18s, the exact time of when the first bomb drops, the fact that Tomahawks are going to follow the F-18s, none of that is classified. That is not method. It's not exactly the route and not exactly a target, but in the hands of the right person, it's not that difficult to figure out what the targets are. And it's not at all difficult to figure out what the route is, because the reality is, maybe you guys don't know this, but the reality is there's only one aircraft carrier in the vicinity of the Red Sea, in the vicinity of Yemen. So you know exactly where the planes are launching from. F-18s are typically what takes off from a aircraft carrier. You know the exact time, it's how is this not classified information? He goes on. Those are some really shitty war plans. Really? Dates, weapon systems, and general targets. This only proves one thing. Jeff Goldberg has never seen a war plan or an attack plan, as he now calls it. Not even close. As I type this, my team and I are traveling the Indo-PACOM region, meeting with commanders, the guys who make real war plans, and talking to the troops. We will continue to do our jobs while the media does what it does best, peddle hoaxes. What is he talking about? Deflect, lie, pretend nothing happened, pretend there's no there. I don't know. Either Pete Hegseth is, there are three possibilities. He knows exactly what he's doing and he's lying because that is the methodology that the Trump administration has inculcated in its members. Or he's an idiot. Or he, I think those are the only two alternatives. Yeah. I think the answer is both. He's a liar and he's an idiot. I do not think this guy's smart. He comes across as just another, tough guy, mentality, but no real content. And here's the Tulsi Gabbard is out there in front of Congress saying there was no confidential information. Then when they show her the information, she says, yeah, it is confidential. But I didn't remember when I said there was no confidential. I didn't remember that this was part of the chat. That's the best she can do. These people are incompetent and I was going to say not very smart, but they're stupid. They're not smart. And they've been trained to lie. And the reality is that Republican congressmen, Republican senators, and Republican voters don't seem to care. They're quite willing to back them up on the continued lying. And here's the tragedy. The tragedy is that they're real questions. They're real questions. Capitalist Spy says, worse than this, Yaron, it is top secret information. Top secret. It doesn't, the exact definition of it doesn't matter. The reality is that, again, they're lying about it. And they could have just come clean and said it was a mistake, never happened again, and gone on. And yet, they're, like all lying, it just makes it worse. But the real tragedy is that I agree in a sense that this is not that big of a deal. Yep, this stuff was secret, top secret, or whatever. And a mistake was made. No harm was done in the end. No secrets were revealed, really. The Atlantic is a responsible publication, so they didn't publish all the secret stuff until after the fact. And after the fact, everybody knew there were F-18s and who they were targeting, and there were Tomahawks. All of that was already known, right, after the fact. The reality is that if they come clean, it's not that big of a deal. But the real tragedy is that we're not having the discussions we should have. Do these people know what they're doing? What are the strategic threats to the United States right now? Is the United States addressing those threats? Is it capable of addressing them? Is it organizing to address them? Are these people in the national security, whatever, are these people capable of leading America in dealing with and addressing the national security threats that are very real? China is a real threat, and China's watching. And my guess is the Chinese leadership is saying, with these clowns in power, we can get away with a lot. And I think that they're still waiting to see how some of this evolves, because the time is on their side, not on the U.S.'s side. They're building up their military, they're building up their capabilities, and at the same time, they're watching. And what they're saying is that the United States is led by a bunch of morons. I mean, literally, a bunch of morons. I really think Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard, Tulsi Gabbard's probably smart in terms of IQ or whatever, but she's a moron when it comes to national security. Waltz, I don't know, he just strikes me as probably somebody with good intentions that has no clue what he's doing. And of course, the moron in chief, which is Donald Trump. And they're going, at the right opportunity, we could basically, put these guys in a position where they won't know what to do. And it will put them in a position where it's clear to them that the military option is not an option. And we'll cut the right kind of deal with them. We'll put the right kind of pressure on them. And they're just waiting for the opportunity. I don't know what that opportunity is. In the first Trump term, COVID served for the opportunity for China to take over Hong Kong, right? I mean, you might have forgotten this. I have not. But in 2020, as Trump was floundering with COVID, China said, yeah, they're a disaster. They don't know what they're doing. This Trump guy has proved to be pretty much of an idiot for the last 4 years. He's not going to do anything about Hong Kong. Let's just take it. Let's just take it. And the real reality is here, Robert Garmong has joined the chat here, and he's lived the last, I don't know how many years, but a couple of decades, I think, at least, in China. And he says, you're absolutely right that China is talking about the idiocy of our leadership. Yeah, I mean, so is Russia, by the way. If you watch Russian television, constantly talking about the idiocy and constantly talking about how Putin is making fun of Trump and making fun of the American leadership. Put that aside. He also says, and I think this is absolutely right, and I think this is the real danger of these people being in charge. Garmong says we could bumble into World War III, and I think there's a real chance that they view us as weak. They do something that provokes Trump. Maybe they think he'll respond in one way, he responds in a different way because he's completely unpredictable, and then whoa, what happens then? Garmong says he's been there 15 years, so I think he's in the U.S. now, Texas maybe. But many years in China. I don't know, it's so frustrating because they're smart people. There's smart people in the U.S., although fewer and fewer I am discovering when it comes to actually the ability to think strategically about America's future, because the smart people are also more influenced by philosophy, and if the philosophy is bad, that influences their ability to think strategically about the future. So I think I told you I read the book. I'm reading the book by the founder of Plantier is the name, I think, who really smart guy, and obviously founded one of the most successful startups over the last 15 years, and is national security and defense and all of that. And God, is he a collectivist? It's really, 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 really bad. Anyway, I'm worried about this administration. I'm worried how weak it is. I'm worried how unstrategic it is. I'm worried how lack of thinking there is. And the fact is that the opposition, the Democrats, the better Republicans, instead of jumping on them on the lack of strategy, the lack of knowledge of what they're doing, the lack of forethought. I'll give you an example. The United States is currently considering dramatically reducing its presence in Japan at the same time as they are declaring that China is the #1 challenge threat to the United States. There's a real contradiction there. I can understand saying we're going to get out of NATO slowly because we want to reorient forces to the Pacific because China is the real threat. But then why would you say, okay, we're going to reduce our forces in Japan? If China is a threat, you want to be close to China. To be close to China, you need bases and you need operations out of Japan and South Korea. Now, if there was a strategy around arming the Japanese and arming the South Koreans and giving them nukes, and the United States backing away from Asia, fine. But again, strategy. Anybody? Ideas? Know where you're going? Know what you're doing? But that's this administration. It regards this and trade and everything else. It's an unmitigated disaster because the people running things don't really know what they're doing. They don't. They put on a good show. But yes, everybody is unbelievably defensive instead of the way the story would blow over is if they just acknowledged the mistake and went on, committed not to doing it again. Anyway, on the front of Trump administration morality, I don't think there's a word like that, absurdity, we now have a RFK who promised that he was not anti-vax. He promised, and we believe, of course, we believe promises, as Senator Cassidy. Senator Cassidy. Somebody should call up Senator Cassidy. Ask him. They should put it on air. Ask him publicly if he regrets voting for RFK Jr. to head the HHS. Cassidy, who's a doctor. He got promises. Anyway, why am I bringing it up? Because today, the HHS has appointed a doctor to, basically to lead a study on the relationship between vaccination and autism. Vaccination and autism. And of course, because RFK only wants the truth, and he's not going to be biased, and he's not anti-vax, he wants rigorous scientific method. He wants to find out if there really is, because what he cares about, ultimately what he really cares about, is the health of children. He wants to figure this out. So he's appointed a well-known, aggressive, vocal, active vaccine skeptic, is a nice way of saying it, who has a history of actively promoting, being engaged in promoting the idea that vaccines cause autism. This is a guy who is being disciplined for practicing medicine without a license, has published research with his father repeating the idea of vaccines, relationship between vaccines and autism, research that is not believed to be credible at all. He even with his father had clinics for treating autism, and some of the treatments were pretty horrific in terms of treating autism. And this is a father who had ultimately got his license suspended because of these attempts at autism treatments that were, I mean, from what I'm reading, and I don't know enough to repeat it, but from what I'm reading, pretty horrific treatments for children with autism. His name is David Geier, G-E-I-E-R. G-E-I-E-R. He is now the, and you know, if you look online, you know, every reputable doctor that I've seen is horrified by this. And, you know, he couldn't, you know, RFK could not have picked a more biased person to lead this research. But it's not just bias. You know, scientific research is hard. Good scientific research is really hard. To establish causation between one event and another, the introduction of vaccines and autism or anything, is really hard. It requires, you know, designing the experiment correctly, or designing the survey or whatever you do, the getting the data, and then using appropriate statistical methods. And that's hard. Figuring out what the appropriate statistical methods, doing it without bias, doing it in a way that doesn't distort the results, doing it in a way that does not reflect your biases. These are real challenges, not insignificant challenges. You would think that if you really cared, I mean, if you really cared, but the relationship between autism and vaccines, if you really thought there was a possibility and you really wanted to come up with an explanation, then you find the best researchers out there, maybe even from a different field, who know how to do studies, who know how to evaluate large swaths of data, and who know inside out statistical methods. This doctor who he's chosen is the exact opposite of that. He's a hack. By all accounts, he is a hack. The research has not been good. He is not an expert on any of this stuff. You know, to do this objectively, you need to be really good. So bring somebody who doesn't have an opinion, hasn't yet examined the literature, who's new to the field. I don't know, bring somebody from cancer, bring somebody from heart disease, somebody from medicine, but who's a solid, knows how to do statistical analysis, knows how to do research, knows how to look at data. Bring him in and let him take a shot at it. He'll read the research, he'll design an experiment, and he'll run with it. But that would require you to actually want the truth. That would require you to actually want science. That would require you to actually want to know. But RFK is a hack himself. All he cares about is reinforcing his particular agenda. All he cares about is proving himself to be right. You know, he's a despicable, horrible human being that should have never been put in this position. And like everybody else in this administration, but like most people in politics, he has lied his way to getting this appointment. So now you're going to have the United States government do a study, spend millions of dollars, do a study, and we all know what the conclusion of the study is, that finds a relationship between vaccines to autism, or at best, inconclusive. And a lot of people will believe it because it's the government, not vaccinate their kids, and the rate of disease and death among children will increase in the United States, and the United States will basically become like a third world country when it comes to infectious diseases. I mean, it truly is unbelievable. Add to this the reality that we talked about, I think last week, that the fact that the NIH now is not going to fund anything to do with mRNA, anything, one of the most promising fields in cancer research, mRNA vaccines for cancer, is now going to be shut down because it doesn't fit the agenda, it doesn't fit the dogma, it doesn't fit the religion of the person in charge. I don't know where you go when you put a anti-science guy at the head of a scientific organization, and hopefully what this does, I mean, the best thing that can happen is that this will spur private investment in these questions. The best thing that can happen is that this will basically turn everybody into a skeptic about science funded by the government, and that ultimately government funding of science will become insignificant, become something nobody takes seriously, and everything will shift to the private sector. Now, that's a very optimistic spin on this, but that's my hope, right? Because I don't think it can be salvaged. I don't think it can be salvaged. You fire RFK, and who do you bring him instead? And why would anybody believe him? And given the track record, everybody's now biased. They're all clowns. How do you reestablish support for actual science when science has been so thoroughly polluted by politics? I don't know how you come back from that. I just don't know. So in Boston, Tufts University, there's video showing this. A Turkish student, she's a doctoral student at Tufts University, woman, walking home, I guess. No, leaving home, walking to meet friends. This is last night. She is 30 years old, and a doctoral student at Tufts on a student visa, legal student visa in the United States, was approached by, I take it, 5 men wearing masks, yelling at her with the police, and basically dragging her into an unmarked van, throwing her in the back and driving away. Now, it could very well be that this woman is the mastermind behind a terrorist organization that is planning terrorist attacks in the United States, and this is all done in order to protect the lives and liberty of all of us. But I don't know. I think that's unlikely. Much more likely is that this woman said some things pro-Hamas, which are despicable, granted, but said some things. I think she was involved in the writing of an op-ed that was critical of the way Tufts University handled some of the demonstrations, and clearly she was pro-Hamas. No evidence, by the way, that she participated or was active or was in a leadership position of any demonstrations, or that she committed any trespassing or vandalism or any of the things that others have been accused of. But she, I think, was grabbed by men with covered faces, masks, like in a third world dictatorship, in unmarked vehicles, and sped away to a jail. The university, Tufts University, has said that the university had no pre-knowledge of this incident and will not share any information with federal authorities, did not share any information with federal authorities prior to the event, so not clear on what basis, what information they had. It's gone before a judge, luckily. I mean, she's lucky. She's actually going to appear before a judge. The reality is that if you were from Venezuela or assumed to be from Venezuela, and you maybe had some tattoos that looked maybe vaguely like gang tattoos, you were whisked away by masked men in unmarked cars, and you never saw a judge. You were placed on a plane, flown to El Salvador, and placed in probably one of the most brutal jails in this hemisphere. For how long? How long are they going to be in jail? Nobody knows. They don't know. They were told, you might be here for the rest of your life. Many of the people whisked away like that were not even gang members. But even if they're gang members, whisking away in the, masked men, unidentified cars, no judge, put on planes, sent to jail. God, that sounds like Stalin, Mao, Maduro. It does not sound like the United States of America. Anyway, luckily for this student, she is in front of a judge who has ordered the government to, by Friday, give answers about why she was detained, and basically ordered that she not be moved outside the District of Massachusetts without providing advance notice, given the fact that we've seen people whisked away to jails in foreign countries. I didn't know that was a thing, that America did that. Yeah, granted, we did that with terrorists, in undisclosed locations, places all over the world where certain terrorists were tortured, by the CIA, but not on American soil. Granted, that was done with people that there was a high degree of certainty who were terrorists. These are not terrorists. I mean, even if she is one of those vandals and ultimately there's a reason to deport her. Let's say she's broken the law, she's done horrible things, she hasn't killed anybody, and she's not planning terrorist attacks. But let's say they found a link where she sent money to Hamas. Then yeah, there's a legal process. You arrest her. You don't do it with masked men and undisclosed cause. You arrest her. You bring her in front of a judge. You present evidence. You take her to trial, or whatever the immigration law is, and you kick her out if that's ultimately the remedy. But this is about as bad as it gets. I mean, this is what we also all feared when Trump promised that he would deport millions of people. But in some senses, it's worse because it's being done with such a disregard for the rule of law, such a disregard for due process. This is what fascism actually looks like. This is what, and the fact that, for the most part, people are silent about this. I'm not seeing a lot of press about this. I mean, some, but mostly from the left. I'm not seeing any Republican upset about this. Gangs of government thugs are rounding up people at night. They're masked, and they're sending them off to jail without due process. What's the fear if they charged her just like they charge anybody else with a crime? What is the fear that she'll run away? Where's she going to run away to? Maybe she'll run away to Turkey, and then they've done, it's called self-deportation. Anyway, it seems like in her case, this is purely around speech. She was one of 4 students in March, last March, who co-authored an op-ed piece in the Tufts Daily criticizing the university's response to its community union Senate passing resolutions demanding that Tufts acknowledge Palestinian genocide. Anyway, she has horrible ideas. But as far as I can tell, the whole issue here is speech. I don't know exactly what her legal status is, but she is legally in the United States. Has she violated, by writing this op-ed, U.S. immigration law? I don't know, maybe. It's still not the way you deal with it. And it's just one more indication of the just absolute disregard this administration has for the semblance, for any semblance of the rule of law. I mean, there's many ways in which Trump, this administration, is turning out to be much worse than even I thought he would be. I mean, it really is horrific. Even if you, even if you don't like illegal immigrants, even if you don't think immigration is a right, even if you think, it's horrible that you have all these illegal immigrants. A, she's not an illegal immigrant, one. Even if you hate all immigrants, is this the America you want to live in? An America where people are rounded up at night by masked men and shuffled, in some cases, shuffled off to prisons in El Salvador? By the way, among the people shuffled off to prison in El Salvador were American citizens. No, sorry, not American citizens, but legal residents in the United States. People who've been granted legal status in the United States. And among them were non-gang members. Is this the America you want to live in? So this is more than this is more than an incompetent, moronic administration. This is more than a shit show. This is a direct assault on the basic rule of law in this country. And once you believe, once you hold that the rule of law doesn't apply in those cases, then it's just a question of time before we ask the question, well, what about these cases? And what about those cases? And what about you? Does the rule of law apply to you? I mean, you can see this, the complete disregard to the rule of law in executive actions, executive orders around the law firms. Trump is going down the list of all the law firms who have offended him over the last few years, and he's basically providing a government sanction against them, unless they come to him and grovel and cut a deal, which is what one of the law firms, Paul Weiss, did in a shocking, disgusting way. But it's unbelievable that the President of the United States can extort these law firms, basically hold up their survival, unless they come and grovel at his feet. And again, nobody seems to care. Somebody says crying over illegal immigrants is insane. You're not getting the point, Francis. First of all, crying over illegal immigrants is not insane. They are courageous, most of them, are courageous, productive human beings who are trying to improve their life and basically doing and represent America at its best. But second, I'm not crying over illegal immigrants primarily. I'm crying over America. I'm crying over the fact that you have a president, that we have a president, who has no regard for the rule of law. I'm crying out for the fact that this president is rounding people up, including American citizens, not illegal immigrants, citizens, because he doesn't care about your rights. He doesn't care one iota about individual rights. He doesn't care one iota about the rule of law. He doesn't care one iota about due process. It's not about illegal immigrants. It's about you. Yeah, who cares about illegal immigrants? Who cares about the Jews? Who cares about you? Just a question of time. Yeah, Francis, you don't know what you're talking about, right? Because you're not listening to what I'm saying. And the reality is that, as far as I know, gang members still have rights in this country. And rights do not only exist for citizens. And when you abrogate rights for non-citizens, then the next thing is to take away rights from citizens. You think that by rounding up supposed gang members, many of them were not gang members, even the governors admitted that at least 15% of them were not even gang members. And this woman is not a gang member. She's not violated the law. And you think that rounding them up is going to make you safer? You think that rounding them up is something the government should do? I mean, this is how fascism comes, right? People say, oh yeah, well, they're horrible people. Sure, bad stuff should be done to them. Smash those windows of those Jews. They've been making money off of us all these years. What the hell? And what are they doing in Germany anyway? Germany's not the Jewish homeland. They don't belong here. And then go somewhere else. What's up with these illegal immigrants? What the hell? They don't belong here. Let's just send them away somewhere. Round them up. Due process? Legal? No. That's the old America. That's the America that believed in a constitution. We don't believe in that anymore. And who's next? Who is next? Well, I know who's next. Law firms who disagree with the president. Who's next? University professors who disagree with the president. Commentators on television or media groups who disagree with the president. People can't have the free speech right to support Hamas, can have the free speech right to support Nazis. Ooh, what happens to Tucker if you take away the free speech right to support Nazis? I won't even get into Charlottesville. Once you violate the right of free speech, including speech you hate, believe me, I hate people who support Hamas. But once you violate their right of free speech, well, why not violate my right of free speech? I constantly call Trump a moron. At some point, if I grow big enough, will they come and silence me? Maybe I should stay small. Help me stay small, guys. All right. God. Talk about Hamas. So for the first time, I think, since the war began, October 7th, so almost a year and a half, for the first time, over the last 2 days, there have been demonstrations in Gaza. In Gaza, not at Columbia, not at University of California, UCLA or Berkeley or anywhere like that, in Gaza. And the funny thing is that the people of Gaza are not on the same side as the Columbia guys and gals. The people of Gaza are actually demonstrating against Hamas. Indeed, it really does appear that the only supporters of Hamas left are Western academics and Western students at universities. But hundreds of people yesterday demonstrated in the northern Gaza, demanding that Hamas give up, basically, and stop the war. Today, again, supposedly, based on reports that I've seen, there were demonstrations in a number of different locations all over Gaza, demanding that Hamas give up and stop. They've had enough of the suffering. Israel has re-entered, as we know, as I think we discussed a few days ago, re-entered Gaza. They're bombing, but they're also moving ground troops in, and a lot of Gazan civilians are like, okay, enough. We've had it. We want Hamas to go. Now, this is what's actually needed. What's needed is for the Palestinian people to accept the fact that they are being defeated, for the Palestinian people to demand that those responsible for this defeat go, give up, surrender. That is how ultimately you'll get any kind of peaceful resolution in Gaza. It's when the Gazan people stop seeking the destruction of Israel and instead start seeking the destruction of Hamas. Maybe, and I fear this was probably over-optimistic, but maybe this is the beginning of exactly that. This is the first time I know of significant demonstrations against Hamas by Palestinians. Maybe this is the beginning of something. We'll see. I'll keep you posted. But yeah, I was inspired to see these reports about these demonstrations. All right, quickly, Russia continues to to play games with the Trump administration and make fools of them. They negotiated supposedly the ceasefire over the Black Sea, and once the negotiation was over, it turns out that the United States negotiators agreed to relieve all kinds of sanctions on Russia. But it turned out that they agreed to relieve sanctions that were not placed by the United States. Sanctions that were placed and can only be relieved by the Europeans. And the Europeans are like, we're not doing that. So one of the things was Russia demanded, in order to get a ceasefire over the Black Sea, which is nothing, right? Nothing. This is like they're giving you nothing. One of the things they wanted was to be reconnected to the SWIFT international financial system, which is huge for Russia. Huge. And the only way they could reconnect them to SWIFT financial system is for the Europeans to do it. And the Europeans have basically said no. So is there a ceasefire on the Black Sea, or isn't there a ceasefire on the Black Sea? Well, it seems like, I think Donald Trump has already said earlier today that there wasn't one, that it basically failed. But I think what Trump needs is to take a sabbatical and to go to Moscow and to learn the art of negotiations from Putin. He's just being outmaneuvered at every step. He really doesn't know what he's doing. There's a pattern here, I think. Whenever I talk about the Trump administration, there's a real pattern. Basically Putin is running circles around him, and he doesn't even know where it's coming from. He seems to get these little concessions, and the United States gives Russia everything, and it's given it stuff that it can't even deliver on. So they go into negotiations without even knowing what they have. Talk about cards. Remember the cards? Remember Trump telling Zelensky he had no cards? Well, it turns out the United States doesn't even know what cards it has and what it hasn't. And, of course, if you really want to negotiate with the Russians, you get the Ukrainians in the room and you get the Europeans in the room, and you'd all sit around and negotiate. But for the United States to negotiate with the Russians independent of Ukraine and Europe is only going to create a mess and ultimately a disaster, because the reality is the United States doesn't know, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. All right. Yeah, let's talk about Milei. Milei, there's a great article today in the Dispatch, written by Scott Lincecum, who I'm a big fan of. I think you know that. He's been on the show. I've interviewed him, and he's a good policy guy, economic policy guy. And he's written an article basically summarizing the state of what we know about Milei's policies, successes, and successes. Milei, of course, came into office with big plans and big promises. Chainsaw-wielding, crazy man. And, of course, the conventional economists predicted doom and gloom and the end of the world as we know it. And then he actually did what he was going to say, what he said he would do. At least he did a large percentage of what he said he would do. And the consequences have been all positive. If you're going to criticize Milei of anything, it's basically not doing more of what he promised to do. And some of that is he's being cautious. And some of that is he doesn't have the political tools to do it because he doesn't control his parliament. Remember, when Milei came into power, inflation was over 200%. Poverty was over 40%. And poverty as they define it. And the physical deficit was 15% of GDP. It was huge. They had a huge and growing public debt, a bankrupt central bank, and an economy that was shrinking. GDP was shrinking. The economy was shrinking. And within the first month, Milei cut the number of government ministries in half, from 18 to 9, and cut spending by 30%. Now, I want you to really think about this for a minute. Think about this for a minute. In his first month, Javier Milei cut government spending by 30%. 30%. By how much has Donald Trump cut government spending in his first 3 months in office? 30%? 20%? 10%? Zero. Government spending is increasing. Even if you believe Doge's most optimistic numbers, maybe they've cut 50, 60 billion out of a, $7 trillion budget, and the 50, 60 trillion dollars is not for this year's budget, it's over the next few years. So it's an insignificant amount, even if you believe all their numbers and their numbers are not true. And if you actually look at spending, which is, for Milei, we're actually looking at the amount of money government spend from 1 month to the next month went down by 30%. In the United States, the government spent more in February than it did in January. My guess is it is spending more in March than it did in February, and it will spend more in April than it did in March. That is, there has been no cut of spending. Milei did 30%. I can't emphasize that enough. That's huge. If you cut 30% of the budget in the United States, it would mean cutting over $2 trillion in 1 month. Ain't happening. Now, he also tried, after the cutting of spending and shrinking, I mean, look at how many departments has Trump eliminated. Maybe he's eliminated the Department of Education, still to be seen. And certainly no bill has gone through Congress with that. Milei eliminated 9 in his first month. Then he put together a massive reform bill that he took to Congress. A lot of it was scaled back because of a legislature which he did not have a majority in. Unlike Trump, because Trump has majority in the House and majority in the Senate. Now, granted, small majorities, but that's politics. Milei got a lot done, even though he had no majority, a tiny minority, actually, in the House of Parliament. What we've seen in Argentina is, according to economists Sebastian Galliani and Santiago Afonso, this is from the article by Scott Lincecum, the most aggressive one-year physical consolidation ever recorded in the history of man. More spending cuts in 6 months than the previous president, 2 times ago, Marcy, who was also from the right, did in 4 years. But more than that, Milei has demonstrated an unprecedented commitment to maintaining the cuts, not just a one-time cut, but a sustained cut. Milei has vetoed laws that were approved by Congress that would increase public spending, even when they were very popular. For example, increasing pensions. He vetoed it. And now he has the credibility. People really believe that he is going to cut spending and that cutting spending is going to be sustainable over the long run. But maybe the most impressive thing that Milei has done is the massive deregulation that he has put together. Again, there's an article published this week by Vasquez where he explains that the real power of the Argentinian government lay in the hundreds of thousands, 300,000 laws, decrees, resolutions, regulations. According to the Human Freedom Index, Argentina was one of the most regulated countries in the world. Regulatory burden ranking 146 out of 165 countries. Now, he has fired massive numbers of public employees. I think this is what's inspired Elon Musk to fire government employees. It's too bad they can't cut spending. He's abolished 100 secretariats and subsecretariats. These are kind of bureaucratic agencies. And many lower level, 200 lower level bureaucratic departments. And he's just got rid of regulations in a wide variety of areas. We've talked in the past about the elimination of regulations on rent that have actually seen the supply of housing double in Buenos Aires and rents plummet. But he has deregulated. He's deregulated pharmaceuticals, technology, transportation, tourism, energy, and agriculture. They've streamlined regulatory processes, inspections, testing, permits, licensing, warehousing of personnel. All of that has been reduced dramatically to reduce the burden on new and existing businesses. He's also liberalized trade, not completely, but he's done a lot to liberalize trade. Eliminated, again, the opposite of Trump, eliminated various trade regulations, import licenses, for example, on appliances and clothing, Buy Argentina mandates, which things like Biden and Trump have put into legislation, where if you want to build something, you have to include Buy America stuff. Well, the Buy Argentina mandates have been trashed, have been eliminated. The idea of only Argentinian airlines can fly in Argentina, gone. So they now have an open sky policy, which has driven a huge increase in the number of flights to Argentina and within Argentina, because now anybody can fly to Argentina and inside Argentina. The United States doesn't have that. We don't have open skies. They also just announced a revolutionary deregulation allowing unencumbered imports and exports of food that's already been approved by a competent regulator abroad. This is like what we talked about yesterday about baby food. Why can't you import baby food into the United States? Well, the FDA hasn't inspected it. Maybe it's poison. But the European FDA has inspected it. Isn't that good enough? We don't know of massive numbers of children dying from food poisoning in Europe because of baby food. Argentina is going to do that. If the FDA has approved it, if the Europeans have approved it, it's good for Argentina. Now, you could argue you don't need food inspectors at all, but okay, next level. But for now, just allow for the importation of food that's been inspected by other people's regulators that are just as good as yours. It's cut tariffs unilaterally on consumer goods. It's eliminated a blanket tax on all imports that existed before. Eliminated a tax on overseas debit and credit card purchases. It's reduced export taxes in agriculture. And he gave a big speech the other day on the benefits of free trade and the evils of protectionism, in spite of the fact that one of his best friends is a protectionist and a believer in tariffs. Anyway, what Scott Lincecum documents here is the incredible things that Milei has done. Now, he says, and I think legitimately, that we all wish he'd done more. He could be liberalizing trade even more aggressively. He could be getting rid of regulations even more so. There's a lot more that he could do. The government has cut and modified 20% of the country's laws. The goal is 70. So there's a lot more to do. In addition, Milei promised dollarization. He hasn't quite lived up to dollarization. He promised to close the central bank. That still hasn't happened, although he promises it will happen at some point. There's still too many restrictions on trade, as I said. Yeah, there's a lot that still needs to be done. But wow, the amount that's been done in 1 year, or 1 year and a couple of months, is astounding. In particular, when you compare to somebody who got the greatest mandate in history, won by the biggest margins ever, Donald Trump, has done really almost nothing. I mean, I think really, really good things are going to happen in energy and environment, and those are going to be big and important. But I don't know of any real initiatives outside of there that are going to have this kind of, any kind of dramatic impact. Milei is doing this across the entire economy, and the results are, phenomenal. Inflation has fallen from 25% in late 2023 to still bad, but a big improvement of 2.4%. That's a 90% drop. And it's expected that it's going to go down a little bit from here. That is, total inflation in 2025 will be 23% instead of the peak of 260%. They've done a lot to reform the central bank, improve the central bank, and generally risk in Argentina has declined dramatically. Argentina is growing solidly. GDP growth is significant. In 2025, they're expecting very high GDP growth, somewhere between 7 and 8%. Unemployment rate is going down. Labor participation rate is going up. Real wages have gone up significantly. And because of the loosening of regulations on trade, trade is up significantly. Imports have increased. Exports went up. I mean, by every measure. Poverty, by the way, is down dramatically. As we said, rents are down hugely in Buenos Aires, and the supply is up dramatically. By every measure, really, you're seeing an improved quality of life, standard of living in Argentina. There's been deregulation of satellite service, which has now increased connectivity and reduced prices of internet service dramatically. You can now buy over-the-counter medication in places other than pharmacies. There's a regulation prohibiting that, which has resulted in more competition, online sales, and price drops. And there's been a 20% drop in the price of clothing and a 35% drop in the price of home appliances because of making it easy to import these things. So, huge successes. Lots of challenges on the horizon. Lots of challenges. There's an election in October. It's going to be interesting to see how well Milei does. The election is for parliament. He's going to run a party. If he really wants to get his full agenda across, he has to win those elections. He has to get a majority, or at least be able to form a coalition that gets a majority. It's going to be a tough battle. The leftists, rightists, the fascists, the Peronists, all the various factions within the Argentinian opposition to Milei are going to rally and try to defeat him. But right now, it seems like he's doing well. We'll see what happens as we move into the future. He's got to refinance a lot of foreign debt. He still has to deal, of course, with the central bank. I think one of the reasons he hasn't dollarized or shut down the central bank is because he doesn't want to piss off the IMF, from whom he still needs a big loan later in the year. And of course, he needs to keep up the pace. He needs to keep deregulating. As we said, he got rid of 20% of the laws, but his goal is 70%. So there's a lot of work to do. And economics, as we know, is hard to predict. But, I mean, the success so far is astounding. We can only hope and wish him the best, that he continues on this path. He is by far the most impressive politician in the world today. He is committed to the ideas about economic liberalization. He's flawed in all kinds of ways, religion, abortion, other things. But he is so good on economic freedom that I'm willing to forgive him all those other things. I mean, the progress he's making on this, and as far as I know, there is no real progress on restricting other freedoms in Argentina right now. Now, that might change if he gets a majority in parliament, I don't know. But I really do think he cares about economics, and that's his thrust, and that's what he's going to focus on definitely for the foreseeable future. And I'll take that. That is pretty amazing. That is what he's done in Argentina is truly stunning. We need a little bit, or a lot of, that spirit here in the United States. That would be amazing. I'm just looking here. It looks like the Canadian government has bought a billboard outside Atlanta, maybe all over the country, I don't know, but certainly outside Atlanta, that says, "Tariffs are a tax on your grocery bill." And it's funded by Canada. Canada doing the United States a public service. This is good. I like it. It's a crazy world. You got to admit it's a crazy world. All right. That, my friends, is the news from March 26th, 2025. It's a Wednesday. I think I'll be back tomorrow. I'm not sure. We'll see. We've still got the super chat, but I think I'll be back tomorrow for another show. We'll see how the day progresses. I have to go out to Oxford and lecture at a boarding school out there. But I'm hoping that I get back in time to do a show. Maybe not. If not, then hopefully we'll do a show on Friday and on Saturday. Let's see. I do want to remind everybody that we have goals for the super chat: $250 for the first hour, $250 for the second hour. So we're doing great. We're well into the second hour, and we've reached the first goal, and we're getting close to the second goal. We're just 140 short for the whole 2 hours. So thank you. But we still need 7 $20 questions or 3 $50 questions, something like that, to get us to where we need to be. And what else did I want to tell you? Yes, please consider supporting the Yaron Brook Show on Patreon, patreon.com, and you can search Yaron Brook Show and become a monthly contributor and make this show possible. And 2 sponsors to remind you. One is Alex Epstein, who is the leading thinker really on issues relating to energy, environmentalism, and the most insightful person right now on what is happening in energy and environmental policy in this administration. You should follow him. Everybody should follow him on his Substack, which is alexepstein.substack.com. You will gain knowledge that you just don't have. You'll gain information about what's going on, and you will become a far better communicator on these issues because of that, by reading Alex on a regular basis. I also would suggest that you check out his. I guess there's an Alex AI, but that might be interesting. What am I looking for? I'm looking for something here that I'm not finding. Yeah, there it is. Our second sponsor, of course, is the Ayn Rand Institute. And the Ayn Rand Institute has an app, the Ayn Rand Institute app. It's the ultimate Ayn Rand library in your pocket. You can explore courses by Leonard Peikoff and lectures by Ayn Rand and courses by many other speakers, but I think the most important ones on there by Leonard Peikoff, all available to you on your phone, on your device. So, I mean, this is an incredible source of information, incredible source of knowledge on objectivism. It's and it costs you nothing to download the app on your phone. You can do it on the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. Just search Ayn Rand Institute, and you'll get the app, and you'll have access to all of Leonard Peikoff's courses for free. I remember when they used to cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars. We basically bought the rights to be able to offer these courses for you for free. Nobody should be denied access to, nobody interested in objectives and should be denied access to these amazing courses and the knowledge and life-saving ideas that they contain. So please do that. Thanks to our donors and thanks to the supporters of the Ayn Rand Institute, we can make those available for you for free. All right. Patreon, don't forget. And don't forget to, we're only about $129 short of our goal here. So we're chipping away. Thank you, Mary Eileen. Thank you, Nevfel. And thank you, Gail. We got a bunch of sticker people. And Wes came in with $50. Thank you, Wes. Really, really appreciate it. Wes is here almost every day doing that. Thank you, N, who's giving Canadian dollars from that are not going to the billboard. They're coming here. Barbara, thank you. Barbara in Portugal, I think. And yeah, thank you to all the sticker people who've done stickers. I don't think I've got you all. I haven't had a chance to thank you all. Esoteric Dichotomy, of course, and so on. All right. So let's get to your questions. Remember, you can still ask questions. Please feel free to do so. Michael. I just want to see something. All right. Michael, are there a lot of really smart people out there who just don't have a philosophical mind? I don't know what a philosophical mind is. I don't know what that actually means. Every single one of our minds is, whether we know it or not, shaped by philosophy. We are, our decisions, our choices, the things we emphasize, the things we consider good or bad, are all shaped by a philosophy. And to a large extent, people are confused about their philosophy because, to a large extent, the philosophies that are being presented to them, the philosophies that are available to them, are incredibly confusing, and they're a mishmash. Most people are not philosophers. Indeed, almost none of us are philosophers. I mean, at best, we are interpreters of other people's philosophies. I'm not a philosopher, certainly not a philosopher when it comes to original thinking. I try to do my best to interpret and apply Ayn Rand's philosophy. So I don't know what it means to say that somebody doesn't have a philosophical mind. Are they capable of thinking rationally? Yes. Are they capable of understanding Ayn Rand's philosophy? At least at the level, at some level, almost everybody can. So I don't think what's needed is a philosophical mind. What's needed is thinking. It's the application of reason. It's to apply your rational mind to engage. That is what is missing, not some kind of a mind. I don't think there is that kind of a mind. I mean, there are people who are more attracted to philosophical questions and dealing with philosophy than others, but I don't think that's what's meant by philosophical mind. Clark, I'm beginning to realize the long way is the shortcut to changing the culture. The shortcut never actually gets you there. Yes, thank you, Clark. You are absolutely unequivocally right. And indeed, there is no shortcut, not if you expect results. That is, the shortcuts are all dead ends or worse. They are ways to take you backwards. For example, joining the conservative movement and joining MAGA, joining Trump, or joining the libertarian movement. None of these are shortcuts. Indeed, they're backward steps. They're steps that get you away from the goal. There's only one way to change the culture, and that is to replace the existing intellectuals. It's to bring to the forefront intellectuals who actually understand and know how to apply and will apply rationally and smartly the philosophy of objectivism in the culture. It's just no other way. It's through education. That's it. So, and that's the long way, but it's the only way. It's the only way. The only way is through education. The only way is to actually do the intellectual work necessary to upend the current intellectual culture in the world. That's going to take time. James, how would you compare Trump to Richard Nixon? It does seem like politically the West is reverting back to the 70s. The Reagan-Thatcher improvements to the Western political economies are being reversed. I don't think that's the right way to think about it. They are, in a sense, being reversed, but I don't think that's the right way. Oh, I think Nixon is a million times better than Trump. As sleazy and as bad of character Nixon had, Trump is in a different dimension of sleaziness, badness. I mean, again, Trump is the mentality of a gang boss, of a mafia boss. That's the kind of... Nixon was more intelligent. He did a lot of stupid things, but he was more intelligent. Nixon had much more respect for, I think, at the end of the day, the Constitution. It's why partially he resigned. Trump would never resign. Indeed, of course, Nixon also faced the Republican Party that was not his lapdog, a Republican Party that would have impeached him. Trump doesn't have that kind of Republican Party. He has a Republican Party who will do whatever he wants them to do. The Republican Party that is 100% purely, unequivocally tribal and unthinking. Nixon did some really bad economic policies, price controls for a while, unthinkable today. Trump is doing tariffs, almost as unthinkable. Nixon basically surrendered the United States to the North Vietnamese. Trump surrendered the United States to Russia and to the Afghans. But Trump, in terms of just his mentality, his demeanor, his character, his bearing, the way he talks, the way everything, much, much, much worse and less intelligent, dramatically less intelligent. Richard Nixon was no idiot. He was smart. So I don't think it's any comparison. Nixon is much better, much better. Let's see. But yes, the Reagan-Thatcher stuff, everything that they did is being reversed and worse, and much worse. Harrison, people warned the left for many years what the consequences of attacking free speech would be. If nobody uses the tools of the left, and there is no better group to silence than Hamas simps, are we not proving to them that there will never be any consequences for attacking the free speech rights of their opponents? I don't understand this. If nobody uses the tools of the left, well, why? But the whole point of the tools of the left is their violation of free speech. Why would you use those tools? What are you teaching the left by using them? You're teaching the left that they were right all along, that they were justified, that it's okay to silence your opposition by force, that is legitimate. You're legitimizing it. And basically what you're saying is, now both the left and the right all agree that silencing the opposition is okay. It's just who they view as the opposition is that they disagree on. The reality is that if you don't use the tools of the left, if you actually let them speak, that is the best counter you can have against them. You can show we can actually withstand, we can actually live with opposing voices. We don't have to silence people. We can actually live in a free country. We don't have to give up our freedoms to achieve what exactly? To fight the left? And then we'll give up our freedoms to fight the right, and then we'll fight the left, and we'll fight the right. And in the end, the only people who lose are all of us. We'll lose all of our freedoms. So there's nothing, zero, nada to be gained. The best way to fight our opponents is not to do what they do, because that was the basis for why they're our opponents. If we do the same thing the left does when it comes to speech, then what's the difference between us and the left? There is no difference. We're all attacking individual rights. We're all the same authoritarian bastards. So no, because the left did it, means we shouldn't do it, assuming what they did was bad. It's exact opposite. It's just like the tariff thing, right? Trump puts tariffs in Canada. Canada's response shouldn't be, oh, I'll show you, I'll put tariffs even higher. It should be, you're stupid, Trump. We're not going to penalize our people because you want to penalize Americans. So wars that involve in actually committing suicide, suddenly abrogating free speech in this context constitutes committing suicide. Are ridiculous wars. That's crazy. You did something bad. I'm going to do something bad even bigger than you. I got you. You have taken away freedoms from Americans. I'm going to take more freedoms from Americans. It's absurd. And whether you like Hamas or not, as you know, I despise them. People have a right to express ideas in support of them. Absolutely. Just like they had a right to support communism, just like they had a right to support Nazism. Remember, Ayn Rand supported a Nazi march through a Jewish neighborhood in Chicago. She said, if you allow other people to march, you have to allow the Nazis to march. You can't discriminate against them. Now, she was against marches, period. She was against public demonstrations on public roads and so on that were disruptive. But if you allow one group, you can't ban another group because the government cannot ban speech. Yeah, I mean, there's the old saying, two wrongs don't make a right. They make a bigger wrong. Two wrongs double up the wrong, and actually do more than double up, because they basically, you don't have any opposition to the wrong anymore. J. Lord, USAID has been cut, but a great deal, but it's not a big department. USAID is not a big department and hasn't been cut that much. USAID has basically been absorbed by the State Department. A lot of its programs have been cut, but a lot of its programs are still running. It's just running now under the guise of the State Department. Congress, in its budget, has allocated just as much money to USAID as they did last year. We still have to see what the Supreme Court thinks about whether the president has the right to not spend money allocated by Congress, but that's to be decided. But Congress, the body in American government that decides on spending, is basically telling the executive to spend as much on USAID as they did last year. So nothing's been cut, really. So it's not that big of a deal, and it's a lot less of a deal than what is presented, because again, it's like the Department of Education is being closed, but most of its functions, over 50% of the functions of the Department of Education, I'd say probably 80% of the functions of the Department of Education, will be taken over by other parts of the government. Is that a real cut? Have we really eliminated power of government? A little bit, but not as much as the hype. Jeffrey, finished Fountainhead last night. Loved the reminder that the ultimate second-hander is the one who seeks power. Forgot how heartbreaking Wynand is. Yeah. Wynand is a real heartbreaker. What a tragic character. Character that could have been a good guy and ends up not being a good guy, not living up to his own values or his own standards. Yes, those who seek power are seeking power over others. Others are the standard. It's the ultimate second-handedness. That's Tui, and in a sense, that's Wynand. And to be a second-hander is to destroy your soul. And that's what happens to Wynand in the end. And Peter kidding. We don't see the ramifications of it on TUI. All right. Let's see. Okay, we got a bunch more questions. Great. We're chipping away at that goal, slowly but steadily. Slowly but steadily. We need a few more of those stickers, even dollar stickers, even $2 stickers would help us get to our goal. It would be great if we made it tonight. Missed it yesterday, but today. All right. Michael, how much of Donald Trump's success are his brilliant marketing abilities or just luck, right place, right time? But I think he has a knack for right place, right time, right? So I don't like to attribute too much to luck. Luck plays a role, but I think people create their own luck, and I think Trump has the ability to know right place, right time, but he also has an extraordinary ability to manipulate people. You can call that marketing, and maybe marketing is part of it, and maybe marketing is how it manifests itself in his business life. But he has an ability to know what people want and to give it to them. And I think the reason he ran in 2016 is he thought that that was the right time for his set of skills, for that skill, that manipulative skill, because it was a time of fear and anger. People were very afraid under Obama and very angry at what Obama did. And Trump brilliantly, you have to say, capitalized on that. Liam, will the American people ultimately be turned off by the ugliness of the right, the sexism of abortion bans, the xenophobia towards hardworking immigrants? I don't know. I'm not seeing it yet. And, I mean, Donald Trump is more popular now than he's ever been, which doesn't make him very popular, but he's more popular than he's ever been. He hasn't really lost anything since the election, and all these revelations have not seemed to affect American people. Democrats have plummeted in polls, so Democrats have gone way down in likability in polls. So the challenge is, what do Americans go for? They might be turned off by the ugliness of the right, but what's the alternative? And I think the sad thing is that ultimately the alternative will be a right that, I don't know, fixes its ugliness problem by becoming more effective in oppression, in authoritarianism. But it's hard to tell what the exact evolution is going to be. It depends on a lot of parameters. But I just don't see, I don't see Americans rejecting the xenophobia towards immigrants. I just don't see it. I mean, even on this chat, he's saying, it's illegal immigrants, who cares, right? So do I really expect people way out there? Yeah. Hopper Campbell, I'm listening to Jordan Peterson's word salad, Mysticism and Psychology, a toxic brew of gibberish to addle the mind. Peterson professes to be a truth teller, yet peddles ancient lies. Yeah, unfortunately, but and it's he's very, very, very influential. He is very, very, very influential in all kinds of subtle ways. His ideas are really, I mean, I think interpretations of his ideas, because I don't think anybody really understands his ideas, but the interpretations of his ideas is what is today guiding the modern right. From Hegseth to the attitude towards Russia, across the board, I think Peterson is incredibly influential. Anyway, my course on the Peterson Academy is doing very well, my capitalism course. So I'm going to be doing more courses. So we'll infiltrate the Academy and get our views, the exposure to those people, and let the best ideas win in the end, right? That's all we can hope to do. James says, since I'm here listening and you asked value for value always. Thanks for everything, Yaron. Currently going back through Peikoff's Thales-Hume course. Reminds me every time of how ancient some modern ideas actually are. Yeah, isn't it amazing? There's very little new under the sun in a sense. Most of the philosophy most people hold is just regurgitated Greek ideas. It's too bad. And it's also true of the good ideas, right? The good stuff is regurgitated Aristotle and some good stuff out of the Stoics and others. So the good and the bad seem to all have their origins in Greece. James, is Milei a random fluke or something more substantial in regards to free market ideology becoming more mainstream in Latin America? I don't know. We will see. But right now, he looks like a random fluke. Now, not random in the sense that I think economies that descend into hell are open to radical ideas. I mean, certainly the Chicago Boys did it in Chile. That's how Chile became as free as it became. And Chile's still freer than Argentina today. It could very well be that the Brazilians and maybe other Colombians or other places around Latin America are inspired by what is happening in Argentina and might find their own some kind of Milei, whether they can find somebody as principled and as rigorous and as committed as Milei, I don't know. But I still think that there hasn't been a significant cultural change. I don't know if Milei is sustainable, never mind exportable. That is, even in Argentina, once things get better, will they want more Milei, or will they want somebody safer? Somebody a little bit a little bit more welfare state-ish, a little bit more conventional, less controversial, safer. I fear that that's what will happen. It happened in Chile. They shifted left significantly over time. And I fear that happens because Milei's trying to educate them on economics, but the moral education is not there. The moral education towards individualism, towards ultimately egoism, which is what you need as a foundation for economics, for economic liberty, is just not there, unfortunately. That's our job. I need to be in Buenos Aires more often. Clark, do you think many or most objectivists aren't emotional enough, not passionate enough? I think that's changing. I think that certainly was the case in the past, but I think that's changing. And I also think that it's natural when you're young to think that objectivism is somehow not quite anti-emotion, but a little, you want to show that you're being rational and have reason, so you suppress your emotions. And as you get older, maybe you loosen that up. But yes, I wish objectivists were more passionate about the ideas, about the philosophy, about their life. And I think passion is definitely lacking in life and among objectivists. The passion around the career, about their loves, about themselves, about their own life. Oh, I got this funny email. I don't think I've told you this. I got this email. You remember that I criticize people. You remember that I know some of you don't like even to hear about this, but you remember that a woman who had 100 guys in a few hours, one after the other having sex with her. Not even sex. I don't know what you call it. Masturbating inside of her, I guess. And I said that the people who were there were the men who participated in this were creeps. And I said they're actually worse than creeps. And it turned out that somebody who listens to the show participated. And he wrote me an email saying that he was insulted by the fact that I called him a creep and worse than a creep, and that he demanded an apology, and that if I didn't apologize, he would then, if anybody asked him about Ayn Rand, he would tell them that she was horrible and awful and whatever. So I wrote him back and said, not only am I not going to apologize, I'm going to tell you that whatever I say negative about you is mild and moderate in comparison to what I think Ayn Rand would say to you. You're much worse than a creep. And that anybody who would be willing to badmouth his own, he said he's an objectivist, badmouth his own philosophy in order to seek revenge against me is a creep on steroids. I mean, it's just, how stupid can you get? Anyway, I don't know why that reminded me of it. Objectivists aren't emotional enough. Objectivists who participate in gang, whatever you want to call it, I don't know. There's something very, very bizarre and creepy about that. Clark Young, the collectivists and nationalists may be chipping away at the American sense of life, but Ayn Rand is secretly reinforcing it under their noses. I hope you're right. I hope you're right, Clark. That would be amazing. Lucinda, my mom got her own place, so now I basically just have the house to myself. Wow, okay, cool. I've finally been able to get rid of my mom's weird, cluttered, hippie decor and actually decorate the house nicely. That is amazing. One of my rules for life is create your own space and make it beautiful and make it so that you enjoy being in it, entering it, living in it, so that it brings you nothing but joy, nothing but happiness. I mean, it's one of the things that are purely in your control. And with your mom gone, in your control, which is great. So take advantage of that. And this is advice to all of you. If you have a space that you are in control of, make it the way you want it to be. Inspiring, enjoyable, bring a smile to your face, whatever. Make it nice. Make it nice. Again, politics you don't have any control of. We can sit here and bitch and complain about politics all day long. But you have control over your office. You have control over your home. Make it something you're proud of. Make it something you're proud of. Make it aesthetic. Aesthetics has a huge role in human life. Huge value. Huge role. Michael, has Trump read the fascist playbook? He doesn't strike me as much of a reader. How does he know what steps to take? I don't think you need to know a fascist playbook. I think it's, you could say it's intuitive, but it's pretty simple. And I think every mafia boss knows it. And I think that Trump has just picked it up. I don't think it's, I don't think it requires any particular knowledge or particular study or anything like that. I think Trump really has a grasp of human beings and how to manipulate them and their emotional state and how to manipulate that emotional state. And I think he just works on it. Now, he might have advisors who've read and who can guide him, people like Steve Bannon. I think Steve Bannon was a big part of his victory in 2016. And Bannon has definitely read the fascist playbook. He's definitely read the fascist authors. He's definitely inspired by particular people. He's an intellect. So Trump surrounds himself, at least is inspired by people around him who do have that knowledge. But then he's also very good at just picking it up, just getting it. It's the way he operates. Ooh, quite a few questions still. Liam, when do you think mixed economies will become just as discredited as communism and Nazism? Well, I don't know. 30 years, 40 years, 50 years? It's decades. It's a long time. Long time. Hopper Campbell, do OCON and other AOI events consistently get bigger every year? I see AOI subscriber numbers are steadily growing on YouTube. No, OCON has been pretty steady in terms of size for a couple of decades, I think. It hasn't really grown. It seems like the number of people willing to commit a week of their time every year to OCON seems to be pretty steady, in spite of the fact that the numbers of people engaged with the Institute, the number of people subscribing to stuff, the number of people watching, engaging, grows all the time. It actually is surprising how little the number of people actually committed to going to one of these events is not grown substantially. At least not OCON. Now, it's also not the case that the Institute puts a lot of resources into marketing it. Michael says, will the next president's administration reverse all of Trump's tariffs? No, I don't think they will. I mean, the reality is that the left has never opposed tariffs. The left likes tariffs, ultimately. And Biden didn't reverse any of Trump's tariffs from the first term. So I don't think we can be confident that any of these tariffs will be reversed by a future administration. Liam says, is a level-headed Democratic Party possible? The core of the ideology is nihilistic collectivism. I don't see how they can be a viable alternative to MAGA. Well, only if they reject their nihilism. I don't think you can really they can reject completely collectivism, but they can become less collectivistic. But they can certainly reject their nihilism. I don't think everybody in the Democratic Party is a nihilist. And I think that it's quite reasonable to expect that in order for them to become a governing party, they will reject their nihilism. But look, then it's unlikely that they are good. It's just, are they less damaging than MAGA, less awful than MAGA? I still think that this country needs a third party. I just don't know where the leadership for such a party comes from. They're either too cowardly, or I don't know, too pessimistic about their prospects. But they're not stepping forward. That Doodle Bunny, is everything we want in life on the other side of fear? Yeah, to a large extent. You're not going to get values unless you overcome fear. Fear of the effort to attain them, fear of failure in attaining them, just fear. Fear is paralyzing. Fear is the anti-action. So yes, you have to get over fear in order to get anything you want in life. Was Kant responsible for World War I as well? You know, ultimately, probably in a sense, yes. But World War I was not an ideological war. I mean, I think Kant was responsible in a big sense. Kant was responsible for the rise of collectivism in the world, in Europe, in the late 19th century, early 20th century. So he was responsible for, in a sense, ideologically killing capitalism, killing the Enlightenment, killing individualism, and the rise of collectivism. To the extent that World War I was ultimately caused by the rise of collectivism and nationalism, and the basically all these powers rising up against capitalism. To the extent that Kant inspired all that, yeah, I guess he caused it, but you know, it's not like there's a straight line between the events. It's a complicated way in which ideas manifest themselves in historical action. Equal to reality. I thought Trump was going to be bad, but holy heck, this administration is worse than I thought. They are just disgusting and pure evil. I agree, and I hate to say it, but I told you so. How would you respond, How would you respond to the claim that big grocery chains should be broken up because they have an oligopoly and are driving up prices? I'd say all of that is completely groundless. There's no basis for any of that in reality. Prices are not being driven up. Grocery prices are not particularly high if you take into account monetary inflation. And they face enormous competition. I mean, everywhere you go, you see grocery shops. You see, what do you call it, Trader Joe's. You see Walmart has groceries. Costco has groceries. Target has groceries. What do you call it? Whole Foods is a competitor. I mean, it's an unbelievably competitive. The whole thing is just absurd. There's just simply no basis for the argument, and not in terms of size, but not in terms of data, in terms of rising prices. It's just not happening. It's just not a reality. Mirko, to make Americans great again, you must to know that America is first. You must, what am I missing here? You must know, yeah, okay. To make America great again, you must first know what America is. Yes, I've said that since 2016, since MAGA came into being, Make America Great Again. You have to know what America is. What are you making great? And Trump and the MAGA crowd has no conception of America. Indeed, J.D. Vance has said it. He said it explicitly. America is not an idea. Well, that's it. That rules you out. You don't know what America is, so forget it. Mirko says, see you in September. I'm still waiting to hear from you guys, from you, what the plan is for September, what you're thinking, when, stuff like that. As you know, I will be in Florence, so let me know what you guys are thinking, when, and if we want to do an event, what kind of event, anything, any information you have would be great. Drop me an email. And he says, Yaron, thanks for the fight. I appreciate it. Thank you. Kim, good places in New York, good food places in New York City. Well, what is it? Miller Bar? Is it Miller Bar? Miller Bar. That is Jeffrey Miller's Michelin star rated restaurant. You've got to go there. It's fantastic. But there are a lot of good food places in New York City. There's an Indian restaurant called Indian Accent that I really like. There are a lot of very high-end restaurants. There's a lot of small ethnic restaurants. But the reality is, sadly, that I haven't spent enough time in New York with time for like restaurants and stuff. I've spent much more time in London than I have in New York. I know the restaurant scene in London better than I do in New York. But there are a lot of good places, a lot of good food places. But Miller's Bar is definitely somewhere you should try out. Look it up. It's got 1 Michelin star. And Jeffrey was just here on the chat earlier. Lucinda, if I remember correctly, Rand makes, thank you for the 50 euro. You got us over the target. If I remember correctly, Rand makes remarks in philosophical detection, how clarity actually leads to clearer emotions. Emotionalism seems less so about strength of emotions and more so about unclarity and fear of what might be revealed through clarity. Yes, certainly emotionalism has nothing to do with the power and the strength of emotions. Emotionalism is emotions that you don't understand and that you let, in a sense, guide your life. That you let, determine your actions. So somebody who's an emotionalist is somebody who lives by their emotions, not just experiences emotions, but lets them dictate his life. Whereas when you have clarity about your values, about your philosophy, then over time your emotions will be clear to you. You will know why you're feeling what you're feeling. And with that clarity, you lose the conflict between the emotion and reason. And and then you're not tempted. You're always guided by reason, but your emotions are not in conflict with that. So you're not constantly torn between emotion and facts and reality. And indeed, I think somebody who's rational and who has clarity about his emotions feels strongly about emotions and allows himself to feel strongly about his emotions, because they're not a threat. They're not a threat. See, emotions are a threat when they contradict our rational values. When people take them as a threat. When our emotions are telling us one thing and our mind is telling us another. When our reason is telling us another thing. That's when they're scary. And that's, emotionalism is living in fear, as you say. And you got to get rid of the fear through clarity, through understanding. And that comes from being clear about your own values and your own beliefs. Thank you, Lucinda. Really appreciate it. All right. J-Lord, studies have proven that as a result of minimalistic aesthetics, the world is getting less colorful, and it's gotten worse as logos go gray and black and white. All right, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have anything to say about that because I don't know anything about studies like that. Indeed, I would argue that Asia is much more colorful than the West, and those colors are expressed today in ways that they couldn't have been in the past because they have the money to express them today. So the lights are up and the skyscrapers and all colorful. And so I don't know how you measure these things, and I don't know. I don't know enough about. You can have very minimalistic aesthetics with color, right? You can have a sofa that's red, right? But it's very slick. It's very Scandinavian. I like minimalistic furniture, for example, but I also, like color. And indeed, color in painting, you've got a lot of splotches of paints that's all colorful, but it's meaningless. So I'd rather have a black and white with meaning. So, like a marble sculpture. So I'd want to see more thought and data around this idea of relating minimalism to color or lack of color and how you measure that and all of that. I'd want to know more. Jason, my friend, eager to understand the world, based a post with fairly good economic ideas on the premise that an economy exists to serve society, not vice versa. Okay? Can you succinctly explain why this may not be a sound foundation, even if the conclusions are good? Well, because there's no such thing as serving society. What does it mean to serve society? Who is society? Is the economy serving me? Is it sacrificing me for the sake of my neighbor and somehow he's better off and his being better off outdoes the pain that it's causing me? So the whole idea of serving society, the whole idea of a common good, the whole idea of collectivistic aims that have no identity, there's no there. Whereas if you ground an economic system on the liberating the individual and liberating the individual to pursue his values, including as a consumer and as a producer, then individuals who are productive are going to be better off. Individuals who are not productive are not going to be better off. And overall, yes, in some aggregate sense, society is better off. But now you're defining society as a group of individuals, whereas before, where society is the beginning point, it's not clear what it even means. So that's my succinct answer. Neo, why is Poland successful with opposite views on immigration? Well, it's not the opposite views on immigration that are causing it to be successful. Poland is successful because it has a relatively free market. It has benefited from being a member of the European Union, but has had better local economic policies. That's the main reason. Immigration has played a very, its immigration policies have probably had a negative effect on its economic success, but it's hard to measure because there's no alternative. There's no alternative universe in which Poland has different immigration laws. And the reality is that Poland is very open to immigration if the immigrants happen to be European and white. That is, there are many, many, many hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Ukrainians in Poland. And they are immigrants, and they've been integrated into Polish society, and they're doing fine. Poland has a particular immigration policy, but is it harmful? Is it beneficial to Poland? You don't know that. You have no standard by which to measure that. What does it even mean to be something good for Poland? Poland has high GDP because it's relatively free. Neo, did you stop doing recordings of your lectures? Were you able to record the lecture with goals only? I record some lectures. I don't record others. Typically in high schools, I don't record the lectures. There's issues of privacy, and high schools don't like it typically. So I usually record my university lectures. But even there, it depends on do they have facilities? Do they have internet? Do they have it depends on their willingness for me to record. I'm going into places. So high schools, I don't record. I'm doing a think tank talk. I don't think they're recording it. I'm hoping to record my St. Andrews talk. That will be on Sunday. Pokey. Hey, Yaron. Could you recommend good books or papers of your liking that cover the 2008 financial crisis in detail? I think the best book, there were a lot of books, but the best book that covers the financial crisis is John Allison's book. So I highly recommend, and I can't remember the name of the book, but I would just Google or put into Amazon John Allison Financial Crisis, and his book is the best book you'll find. And in there, you will probably find citations to other books that might be available. I'm sure there are other good books, but I can't, off the top of my head, that's the only one that I have. Baker, would you consider interviewing Lucinda, a young woman due to objectivism, seemingly doing something with her life, might be an inspiration to the rest of us? Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Lucinda seems like she would be fun to interview. Lucinda, let's talk about it. I don't think I have any time anytime soon, but maybe in June we can do something. But if you're up for it, Lucinda, maybe we can do that. J. Lord, Bannon says Trump will run in 2028. Yes, he does. So do a lot of Republicans. Even Trump has said he might run in 2028. So we will see. Mary Aline says Ocon lectures keep getting better and better. That's excellent. Yeah, you should all come to Ocon. And those of you who can't afford it should apply for a scholarship. Would you enter a celebrity, this is Apollo, would you enter a celebrity intellectual boxing tournament if the prize money was good enough? No. I don't like boxing. I don't believe in boxing. It's violence. I don't like it. I see no appeal in it. And money is not enough of a seduction for me to go and have my face bashed in or bash somebody else's face in. It's just unappealing. Ryan, great to see you, Yaron. Are you sleeping well on that road? Stay healthy. Sleeping well is last night was okay, but the nights before were not good. I hope tonight is a good night for sleep. And tomorrow I'm working out, and I've got an interview, and I've got a nice lunch, and then I've got to take the train to Oxford, and I'm giving a talk at a boarding school in Oxford, and then I take the train back to London, and maybe I'll do a show, or maybe I'll just go to sleep. Talk about sleep. It's bedtime, guys. It's 11:04 here, and I need to go to bed. So thank you. Thanks to all the super chatters. You guys were great today. And I will see you all maybe tomorrow. If not, pretty sure we'll do a show on Friday. See you then. Bye, everybody.